Welcome back, everybody, to HoopsHD's continuing four
Woohoo!
podcasts and that are being done simultaneously tonight in our 2022-23 preseason podcasts. This is our Atlantic 10 show. Despite what David Griggs thinks, this is our second one we recorded. If you're looking for the American, it's above. Look for the Mountain West,
I'm
below. West
I'm
Coast,
just
further
saying,
below. Anything else up on the season preview tab. I'm Chad
alphabetical
Sherwood.
order. It should be first.
John Titel to one side, Rocco Miller from Bracketeer to the or bracketeer.org to the other side up here, if I can get that out. John Stalika and David Griggs down below. Uh, this is our A10 preview show. And, well, Stalika, you're an Ohio guy, so why don't I start with you here? Because in the preseason top 25, with pretty much everyone back from a 24-win team, is Anthony Grant's Dayton Flyers. How good is this team going to be this year?
It is, for all intents and purposes, everyone back. You've got one junior, you've got a crap ton of sophomores on that team, maybe a few scattered freshmen. But if you're talking about the players themselves, we're looking at Deron Holmes, Tumani Kamara. One of the Malachi Smiths we'll be talking about tonight. Also our Hoops HD favorite, and Kobe Elvis, and also RJ Blakeney that's going to round out the starting rotation. I mean, we're looking at some of the early tests that the Flyers are going to have in the season as far as their schedule. They host SMU. They go to UNLV. They're going to be part of the Battle of Atlantis tournament, where Kansas fans are probably freaking out because they're on their half of the bracket again. They also have a neutral court game against Wyoming and a trip to the castle at Virginia Tech. So if the Flyers wind up with only one or two losses, look out, because they will be more than capable of running the table in the Atlantic 10 this year.
Yeah, and you wouldn't get some of those big wins and you dominate the Atlantic 10, Rocco. This could be a top 10, if not better, team at the end of the season just by the way polls work.
Yeah, I mean the ingredients are there. I think Dayton, even when they're not this good, they overperform at the holiday tournament because literally every person that loves the Flyers flies to wherever that is. So they're going to pack the Bahamas. That's going to be brutal for Wisconsin, their opening opponent, and Kansas already knows the formula. So that's going to be a beast to knock Dayton out of that thing. But the only downside I see, I was super high on these guys a couple weeks ago, but we just got word Mally Smith's going to miss significant time, I think, with his injury. And Deron Holmes is still probably their alpha, best player on the team, and probably player of the year in the league. But they just got to reshuffle their rotations. That could take a little while to maybe adjust to. But beyond that, I think sky's the limit. And if you get Mally Smith back for conference play, they're still clearly the favorite in the league.
Well, they have Holmes, they have Kamara also. So I mean, there's still a lot of pieces here.
Yeah, and he is expected to return. Is he not? Yeah, he's not out for the year or anything. I mean, it's rough because again, sometimes when you're in a league like this, you want those really big early season wins to kind of pump up your resume.
Yes.
I'll say this: the 2 years that they played Kansas, one was in the Maui Invitational, was it the championship game, and it went into 2 or 3 overtimes, and then the game last year that came down to a last second. Those were 2 of the most exciting regular season basketball games of the entire year. So I think Kansas and Dayton should have to play in a multi-team event every single year.
Titel, the St. Louis Billikens were a team that heading into last season, we really were high on this team, and then the injury bug just completely crushed them. Javonte Perkins back, mostly healthy from what I hear. How good is this Billikens team going to be this season?
I believe Perkins is on the preseason all-conference team, which is amazing considering, like you said, he literally missed all of last year. He's going to, I think, be, if not 100%, at least good enough to be a contributor. He was the conference sixth man of the year in 2020, and he scored 21 points in the NIT in 2021 before he tore his left ACL last October. The key to this team, though, and who's going to make them run, is not Gibson Jimerson, who's a great scorer, but the point guard, Yuri Collins. Led the nation last year with almost 8 assists per game, and he also scores 11 points a game, gets a couple steals a game. He was first team all-conference defensive team. So Perkins has a chance to shine, especially because you can't focus your whole defense on him because he's got enough pieces around him. It's a very interesting team.
NCAA tournament team?
I'm leaning yes. Uphill battle, but I'm leaning yes.
I like that. Rocco, I think when we talk A10 almost every year, we have to say, what about VCU?
Yeah, I mean, VCU's got a great program, quite a bit back this year. I think it's a team that you can probably count on to be right there in the top. I think they're certainly in the top 3 conversation, perhaps even top 2 with Ace Baldwin still there. He's a guy that's just been. It seems like he's been there a long time because he's been such a big part of their success and not success when he was hurt. So you hope he's 100%. With guys like Nunn and Watkins, Johns, Deloach. I mean, it's a really good lineup. The schedule's pretty good as well. So all the pieces are there for them to squeeze in, and they have a tremendous home court advantage, just like Dayton does. So part of me wants to trust them even more than St. Louis, just because the only time Travis Ford's actually taken St. Louis to the tournament was on the bid steal. He's never actually had that large caliber team.
Yeah.
So part of me wants to put him second. But I guess VCU and St. Louis are 2A and 2B for me.
Stalika, the big off the court news for the A10 is their new member this season, and that's Loyola Chicago coming up for the Missouri Valley Conference. How about the Ramblers in their new league?
Well, Loyola did walk off of the Missouri Valley with a conference title last year. Granted, they did lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament against Ohio State. Now, as far as who's going to be coming back, you still have Braden Norris and Marquise Kennedy who are going to be off that team. And also transferring in from Butler is a grad transfer, Bryce Golden. I'm sorry, Puppet. I didn't mean to use the word grad transfer because I know the rant that's going to be coming after that.
There's no such thing as a grad transfer. You don't transfer into grad school. The NCAA is stupid.
Yeah, so Stalika, do you think this Loyola team could do well in the new league or not this season?
Well, it's going to be a little tough trying to break through against teams like Dayton, St. Louis, and VCU. Now, by the same token, I would say towards the middle, it's going to be stronger than the Valley, but the bottom of the league is going to be a lot worse than what they've dealt with, not just in the Valley, but also the Horizon League where they were a few years ago.
Yeah, we're not going to spend too much time at the bottom of this league, but we got a couple of teams near the top that I think are worth some discussion. Griggs, how about VCU's big rival in Richmond?
I always like this Richmond team. They're very hard to defend because of just how well they move the ball and how they create open shots, even in years where it doesn't seem like they're very good. I think they're frustrating to play against. Chris Mooney is someone that I really like as a coach. I'm real impressed with what he's done there. Having said that, Richmond, there's always a smattering of teams that I seem to overvalue every year, and Richmond is probably one of them. But they won 24 games a year ago. They got to the round of 32 of the NCAA tournament. I know that they have, they don't have all the pieces from that team back, but I think they have enough back. And one of the things that Richmond does, if you watch them over the years, is that they develop players. They seem to successfully transition guys into new, bigger roles when it's time for them to step up. So I'm certainly not writing off the Spiders.
Yeah, and they do have Tyler Burton back, and he can.
Yeah, and Tyler Burton's back. Yeah.
Titel, you don't like first-year coaches, but it's just Coach McKillop again over at Davidson. It's not a first-year coach, is it?
Not according to the last name. I'll give you the partial credit. Fortunately for him, he has some solid shooters to rely on, the best of which Foster Loyer, 16 points a game last year, top 5 in the nation from both the 3-point line and the 1-point line. So the guy can shoot flat out. Last year he was a point guard. I heard this year he's going to be the 2 guard under Matt McKillop. And hopefully he's the best athlete in the family, but I'm not sure. His younger brother Fletcher was a top 100 recruit. He's playing at Purdue this fall.
So how good do you think this Davidson team ends up being?
Good. I think that they will push St. Louis and Loyola for like the 2 seed in the tournament, but I think they're going to come up a little short just because they lost some guys. I believe that one of their big guys, Michael Jones, transferred out west to Stanford to be near Rocco. So I think it's going to be an uphill battle.
Rocco, a team that I'm kind of looking at here, and I love to ask you about teams that I can't quite figure out is there a little bit of life in George Mason this year?
I mean, the roster is great. I think I keep looking at the roster and I'm more and more impressed. And it starts, of course, with Josh Aduro, who's all conference player. He's certainly a lead contender for conference player of the year behind Holmes at Dayton. But now around him, there's so much more. They get Victor Bailey over from Tennessee, a grad transfer. He's always had a lot of capability, but Tennessee's just loaded. So he'll be a key player here at George Mason. Devin Dinkins is a highly heralded point guard recruit. They're going to need great play out of him as a true freshman. Saquon Singleton's not even good enough to start on this team. He was the New Mexico media representative at Mountain West Media Day last year. So it kind of shows you the depth that they've built around Oduro. My only question mark, main question mark is, Kim English is so young in his career. There was a few games last year that I noticed when it was tight, they didn't make the greatest decisions. He got a little bit out coached. That's going to be, this is another league where you say this a lot. Games are going to be won on the margins. And in order to be in the top 4, top 5 of the league, they're going to have to figure out ways to win close, have strategy. They're not going to get away with talent alone, but I love the talent that they have put together.
Yeah, and there are a lot of very good coaches in this league. Guys, with a lot of experience. Also, we're going to be getting to a couple first-year guys too. And Salika, why don't we start with one of them? Our good friend Angry Frank, now at UMass.
Angry Frank.
In one sense, he is returning to some roots that he has in the Northeast. He actually met his wife Anya over at UMass. She was a former track and field athlete. He was also an assistant over at Northeastern, so he does have a little bit of familiarity with the area. But as far as who's going to be starring for the Minutemen this year, you have Noah Fernandez, who is a second team All A10 selection. And then as far as a couple players who transferred from South Carolina, you got Wildens Levesque, and then you also have his son, Brandon Martin, who also spent 3 years at USC Upstate before spending a year at South Carolina.
And Woodley, too.
Yeah. Stalika, I totally underestimated your fandom for Angry Frank. I didn't know you knew his life story like that.
I gotta say that I think this could be an extreme dark horse, but this could be a dark horse team in this conference, Griggs. This UMass team with
you think so? I don't know. I mean, they won 15 games a year ago. It's going to be a frustrating rebuilding year. Only 2 starters are back. I could see this
there's a
being
lot of transfers.
Very angry type of team.
Frank can get these transfers to play together. We'll see. But let's kind of go below this a little bit quicker here through the rest of the league.
Yeah.
First of all, well, let's talk about some of the new coaches actually in this league. First of all, Titel, Fran Dunphy, back in the coaching business at 783 years old or something like that. Over at LaSalle now, his 3rd Big 5 school.
I think you got the decimal point wrong on that. He turned 74 earlier this month, but yes, it is very old. In April, his alma mater of LaSalle said they're going to bring him out of retirement. He's going to become the first guy to ever coach 3 different Big 5 schools. Back in my days at Penn, he was a god and won 10 Ivy titles in 17 years, 310 career Ivy wins, second in conference history to Pete Carrill. Then he goes to Temple to replace some guy named John Chaney, and all he does is win 3 straight A10 titles, 2008, 2009, 2010. He's even got a master's degree in counseling from Villanova back in 79. Like, he touches every single school in the Big 5. I still don't know why the heck he's doing it, frankly. He's 74, like, enjoy your life with your grandkids and stuff. But I think it was a situation where he's a alum who loves his school. He lives in Pennsylvania. He knows more about basketball than anybody else around. And they said, let's give it a shot. So I certainly wish him the best of luck. And I cannot wait to see him in the Palestra in a few months against my Quakers.
Rocco, let's welcome Archie Miller to the conference here at Rhode Island.
Archie!
My cousin Archie. Welcome, buddy.
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, Rhode Island, not only is Archie back in the A10 where he had great success, of course, at Dayton, which is the reason for the hire, but they also did a great job quickly assembling this team. I thought, getting a talented player from Alabama, and Alex Chiku, he's going to start. He was somebody Washington recruited, a very highly ranked recruit out of high school, and also one of the best shooters in this own league. Breon Freeman comes over from George Washington, a nearly a 44% 3-point shooter. To go along with Ish and Malik, who were really solid players last year, not great shooters, but good slashers and scorers. You can see a good little pick and pop if these guys can come together. So I think they are dark horse-ish material. Hard to really know anything beyond that, but I would not, pick them to finish below teams like Duquesne or LaSalle.
Griggs, it's normally one of the last teams we discuss in the conference. We still have a few more to go beyond it. Fordham coming off of a 500 season. Unfortunately, their coach is now over at Villanova, assistant Keith Ergo taking over.
Yeah, Fordham going 500 is sort of like what it's like for a normal school to win back-to-back national titles. It's just a very, very rare occurrence. And they do have a lot of pieces back, and there's probably more reason to be optimistic than what there typically is in Fordham, but they also lost a lot. Like losing their head coach was a big deal. And I guess the question now is, can they keep this momentum going? They are on a mission to finish in the top 200 of the KenPom rankings in back-to-back years for probably the first time in their entire existence.
Probably. I don't know if KenPom existed back the last time they were any good.
Well, he should.
Or at least since Derek Wittenberg back in 2006 and 2007, where they looked like they might be competitive for a change, and then that leveled off.
I don't. Just one quick final thought on Fordham. I don't get them. I don't see how they can be who they are with the alumni presence that they have, where they are, and consistently look like a team that would finish in the bottom half of the Northeast Conference. That's not an exaggeration.
But they didn't look that way last year, so let's see.
They did not. They did not, yeah.
Titel, the one other new coach is in your backyard there over at GW, Chris Caputo.
I certainly wish him the best because I think it's going to be quite a struggle for every team in DC this year. I don't think there's a lot on the roster besides James Bishop, the LSU transfer. In Caputo's credit, he learned from Jim Larinaga at both Mason and Miami. So I like that coaching tree. But I think cellar dweller.
Rocco, it's amazing we have not discussed the Bonnies yet, but everybody's gone from that team last year.
Everybody. And I mean, this was the team. This was the team last year out of 357. I think we had last year teams ranked last in bench minutes. It was literally the whole starting five almost every game, which is why they ran out of gas in January, quite frankly. But now, I think Schmidt's got a really good X's and O's coach. And, he is bringing in transfers from all over. Most of them are up transfers from smaller leagues. You guys probably remember Daryl Banks, St. Peter's. He'll actually be pretty heavily dependent on here in the A10. We'll see how he makes the jump. But I do think, he's basically got some of the best players off of really low major teams. Probably enough there for them to at least maybe crawl into the top 10 of the league, but just not talented enough to compete at the top level.
Yeah.
Any truth to the rumor that the beer man will be starting for the Bonnies at some point this year?
That would be awesome. The beer man. The man with the bear on his head. That is a great man.
Dan
Griggs, St. Joe's, is Billy Lang suddenly on the hot seat possibly here? Because this program seems to be going nowhere.
Yeah, I'm really concerned that if he doesn't get things turned around, he's going to end up at a place like St. Joe's.
Okay. Stalika, last team. How about Duquesne? Anything at all here?
I'm not seeing anything hopeful on the horizon right here. I mean, Keith Dambrot was another coach who would come over from Akron, looked like he might make the Dukes relevant for a couple years, and now they're the Dukes of Hazzard.
Dukes of Hazzard. Okay.
How are they so bad? They're similar to Fordham. How are they that bad?
Yes, we get it, Griggs.
I still think the best team in the Pittsburgh area is going to be Robert Morris that we'll be getting to next week.
The city of Pittsburgh is just a dumpster fire of college.
All right. On that note, let's run through each of you here. Who's going to win the league? How many bids? Any other thoughts on the conference? Sleeka, let me start with you this time.
I said, I don't know how you can answer anyone other than Dayton unless we're just talking about who's going to win the conference tournament, because chalk never seems to hold up. So that's why I'm going to go with two bids being the Flyers, and who knows who's going to win the conference tournament. But as far as my final thought, I do want to have a moment of silence because apparently the IARP has made one significant move, and that all traces of the Arch Baron Cup have been completely deleted from the interwebs.
Oh.
I don't
Wait,
care.
what happened to the Arch Baron Cup?
The Arch Baron Cup will live forever here.
It will. What happened to it?
We have Dayton as our winner. We have St. Louis making it. I'm going to set the over at 2.5 and take the over. I think there's just too many teams who have a good track record. Loyola, VCU, Richmond, Davidson, St. Bonaventure of very recent success that one of them is going to figure it out this year and sneak in with 20 plus wins. As far as a final thought without a screenshot again, I'm going to go to scenic Dayton. And if you like guys named Jalen, as we said, Tulane is your school for that. If you like guys named Kobe, Dayton is your school. We got 2 sophomore guards, Kobe Bray, 6th man of the year last year, and Kobe Elvis. He had 20 points in the NIT overtime loss to Vandy last year. So the original Kobe sadly is long gone, but the next generation of Kobe's are alive and well. I'm happy to report.
All these basketball players named Kobe that are in the 20 years old. Amazing. I wonder what their parents were thinking. Actually, I agree that Dayton's going to win the conference personally. I think it's a 3-bid league. I like Dayton, St. Louis, and I think I'm looking either VCU or George Mason. I think those are the 2 teams I think could be the 3rd bid. I'm not certain which one yet. Rocco, what about you?
I'm close to you. Right now I've got 2.5 exactly with Dayton and VCU getting into the field cleanly, and St. Louis is actually like my last team in right now as a Dayton first 4 team. But in my first 4 out, I have Loyola Chicago right on the edge as the 4th place team, and then it definitely would not shock me if Davidson, George Mason, or Richmond, any of those 3 play their way in because they've got enough pieces and they're very well. 2 of them are very well coached. One of them's loaded talent wise. So upside galore. And who knows, we talked about the Big Ten yesterday. If a league like that gives away some bids, this could be the A10's year to snatch up maybe a 4-bid league.
Nice. All right. Griggs.
Dayton to win the league. I think Dayton could end up as a protected seed. I love Anthony Grant as a coach. It seems like in every year he's been at Dayton, they've exceeded their preseason expectations, and I think that they can and will this year. I kind of like St. Louis as well to get inside the bubble. And I don't know. I'm kind of with you. I think a 3rd one will make it. I'm just not sure. I like VCU, like Davidson, like Loyola. I even like Richmond, and I know I like them every year. I guess my final thought is, and I just thought of this, what is the gap? And this is a Stalika or Rocco research question. What is the biggest gap between where a team finishes at the top of the conference and then where a team finishes at the bottom? Could there be 330 spots between Dayton and Duquesne at the end of the year in power rankings?
Well, maybe Houston and East Carolina. I don't
know.
Maybe
Houston.
We could have a couple of them this year. You're right.
Yeah.
Thinking there may have been years in the Mountain West where San Diego State had a high rating and San Jose State had a near bottom rating.
Well, that's going to change.
What about Gonzaga?
And Gonzaga occurred to me too. Yeah. Like it maybe it's more common than what I thought.
There's a few of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, I do want to thank everyone for joining us again. Americans up there, Mountain West and West Coast are down there. This has been the A10. On behalf of John Teitel, Rocco Miller from Bracketeer.org, John Stalika, David Griggs, I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you again in just a few minutes when you click on that Mountain West button.